Rob on the mic, spitting truth from the heights. Queens unite under stadium lights. Bright nights, 7 train rides. Dreams born in the real hum. Brooklyn to Queens, yeah, we all about that outcome. This our time, this our cheer. Mets talk loud, bring the hype, make it clear. From the boroughs to the field, this our year. Queens in the house, let the world hear. From Flushing Meadows, echoes bounce off the bat. Rob calls, take the mic, snaps like a thunderclap. Home runs over bridges, no gaps in the story. Mets rise, reclaiming the glory. 7 the city, blue and orange army swarm. Summer vibe electric, love in every form. From Biggie's blocks to Flushing's heartbeat. Our anthem loud, no retreat. This our time, this our cheer. Mets talk loud, bring the hype, make it clear. From the boroughs to the field, this our year. Queens in the house, let the world hear. The apple pops in the outfield, city of dreams. Rob's voice over static, Mets on every stream. White lines mapped out the future, vividly. From shade to city, the journey's never gimmicky.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to Mets Talk Live right here on the channel and on X. How is everybody doing on this Mets off day Monday as the New York Mets are coming off a series win against the Seattle Mariners? And it is very, very nice to say that, as we've had off days, we've had post-game shows, pre-game shows, Mets Talk Live, with Chris, Zach, myself, etc., talking about frustration and losses and losing streaks, and we get to talk about a little bit of positivity going into tomorrow's series against the Washington Nationals. But it all can't be sunshines and rainbows and happy faces and smiley faces, because we have to worry about the Francisco Alvarez injury update that we have not got yet, which is a little concerning to me, in my opinion. I think if there was, it doesn't take long. He flew back last night to New York. Early in the morning, first thing in the morning, they're going to get that MRI. They're not waiting until mid-afternoon, right? I mean, we all know doctors. These guys are on, their 12th hole already on the golf course, if we all know that. So for us not hearing anything yet, I don't see how it's good news, to be quite honest with you, right? I want the good news. I want it to be just a jammed finger and give him a couple days to be day-to-day, but there's a reason why news hasn't come out yet. And it's probably the Mets going over alternative situations and plans. What are they going to do? Are they going to put him on the IL for 2 weeks and hopefully it's just that? Is there ligament damage, right? They're taking him for an MRI, which is scary nonetheless, because they probably somewhere in Pennsylvania probably went for an X-ray, and they probably see no bone damage. And if you just listen to Chris and Zach said it, right? It could be a possibility of ligament damage. Could be, something soft tissue related. And, that is a worst case scenario. We know how many times he had problems with his left wrist and left hand. Now with his right hand, that could be a possibility, his right thumb. And again, as a catcher, you can't play around with that. He has to be there, being somewhat healthy. And we know he's still having issues with that left hand, considering the fact that, look at yesterday's game. How many foul balls went off his hand and he winced and he kind of went down to one knee and just, he feels that hand still. And that's a surgically repaired hand multiple times now. And now he has to deal with the right hand, which is his throwing hand. And that's another concern. And finally, we got Francisco Alvarez looking like the player that we thought he could be with the bat. Now, not a ton of power has come back, but we've seen some shades of that power, seen some flashes of that power. And, of course, seeing him better at the plate, a little bit more patience at the plate, not afraid to hit the ball the other way. A lot of good signs from Francisco Alvarez. And now we have no idea what is going on with that thumb of his on his right hand. That's the problem. And unfortunately for the Mets, it can't always be positive for us, right? We can't have a nice series win, which we desperately needed. The Phillies got terrible news about Zack Wheeler. Again, he had the surgery today to remove a blood clot. And again, there's no timetable for Zack Wheeler coming back. But let's be honest, guys. Even if he does come back, it's going to be very late in the year. And how effective will he be, knowing that he has to ramp back up for a late season addition back to the rotation for the Phillies? And that's a big blow. That's their ace, right? They just got Aaron Nola back, but we saw what happened to Aaron Nola the other day against Washington. The Phillies drew up 6-0, and he blew a 6-0 lead. So that is huge for the Phillies. And there's no timetable. And in all likelihood, he could be done for the season. That's a life-threatening situation. This isn't, Tommy John. This isn't, a shoulder. This is a serious health concern with a blood clot. Because how did it develop? Why did it happen? Right? They got to go through all that. They removed it, but they got to figure out how it happened. Right? We all know blood clots can form in so many different ways. They don't know. They probably don't have an idea what it is yet, and they got to do all the testing. They got to make sure it doesn't, develop back into a blood clot again. That is, he's on blood thinners right now, so he definitely can't play because, again, it risks getting cuts. Even if he gets a blister on his finger from pitching, the blood thinners can make him bleed too much because obviously the blood thinners are thinning in the blood cells. So, that's a lot to think about. I know we're going a little bit more into, scientific terms and medical terms and stuff like that, but it's something to really think about going forward as the Mets play, in about 8 days, 5 or 7 days, the Phillies. After they finish up their road trip and come back home, they face the Phillies. So it's unfortunate that the Mets have to deal with Alvarez at the point where we are finally seeing Alvarez perform the way we thought he could perform. And it sucks. I know committee, they're not going to bring up Parada. They're not. They're going to bring up Hayden Sanger as the backup to Luis Torrens. That's what they're going to do. Like, I don't think they're going to bring – I mean, they could bring up Parada, right? Isn't Parada in AA right now, if I'm not mistaken? I don't know if they're going to do that. Hayden Sanger has been fine. He'll be a fine backup. He'll, obviously catch twice a week because you got to give your catcher days off. Luis Torrens is going to be the guy. Now you're going to lose some offense, a lot of offense when Luis Torrens plays. But you know what? Because he hasn't played much, maybe we can get him to, get those base hits and, hit that ball the other way, at least a little bit. But it's going to be all about the other guys. And we know this, right? Why are the Mets playing better offensively, right? It's Lindor starting to get hot. We know this team. It's not Juan Soto. It's not Pete Alonso. It's not Brandon Nimmo, Jeff McNeil, Brett Beatty. It's none of those guys. When Lindor is on a streak like he's on, the Mets win. It's just that simple. Like, when Lindor is bad, the Mets are bad. Like, every time Lindor starts to hit, the Mets win. And that's been a fact. And again, Lindor can't control the pitcher. Lindor is the player of the week this week in the National League. He's been outstanding. And if you look at the last week when Lindor has been hitting, the Mets have been scoring. They've been averaging around 6 runs per game. They've been really good. It's just the pitching has failed them. And that's not, Lindor can't fix that. All they can do is help put runs on the board. And when Lindor goes, the Mets go. And Jake, you might be absolutely right. The Mets might not have enough pitching to carry them. That is true. But you know what? The Phillies don't either. Right? If they lose Zack Wheeler for the rest of the year, you know who's their number one starter? Ranger Suarez. And I know he's been good. But are you deathly afraid of Ranger Suarez? Are you deathly afraid of a guy who just came back in Aaron Nola? No. You're scared of Tyrone Walker, who got plugged into the rotation, who's been pitching better? No. Right? The Phillies went to get their center fielder in Harrison Bader and got their closer in Joan Duran, who is also injured, by the way. So, teams like the Cubs, who were basically falling apart at the seams over the last month or so, right? All that PCA conversations, what happened to him, right? And I know Chris and Zach talked about it a little bit with PCA, how he's took a deep dive into no man's land, and he hasn't played well. And him not playing well, the Cubs haven't played well, and their pitching is fine. But again, they got flaws as well. If you're a fan of a team, doesn't matter if it's the Phillies, Mets, Yankees, Blue Jays, any of the teams, the Dodgers, Padres, right? Everybody was talking about the Padres being world beaters. They just got their ass kicked against the Dodgers. That kind of wiped out all their satisfaction that they were having. All I heard, the Padres are coming. The Padres are coming. And what do? Like they always do. They choke. The Dodgers shown who's boss in that NL West again, right? Don't trust these teams. The Dodgers aren't as good as last year, even though they're obviously dangerous, right? They have the potential of having the best rotation going into the playoffs because they got 5 aces that any team would want to be their number one, right? They got their pitchers, right? These guys come back. They're injured for most of the year, but these guys come back when it matters the most. Blake Snell is back, right? Yamamoto, I believe, is coming back or is already back. They're going to get their pitchers back. Glasnow is back, right? There is nobody that can go against their pitching, but it doesn't mean they're unbeatable. Doesn't mean they're unbeatable. And that's important to understand, and that's important to realize, is that just because the Mets pitching might not be the best of the bunch doesn't mean they can't win, right? Didn't the Phillies have better pitching than the Mets in the NLDS? Yes. Shit. The Brewers had better pitching than the Mets, so to speak, considering the fact that their pitching was actually better than the Mets. Other than Manaea, overall, they had better pitching, bullpen and rotation, right? We beat them in the wild card. We beat the Phillies when they had Zack Wheeler, when they had Aaron Nola, when they had Ranger Suarez, and we beat them. The Dodgers, the same thing. It took them 6 games to beat the Mets, and that was when the pitching fell apart for the New York Mets. And guess who showed up? Burley, Yamamoto, right? Flaherty, those guys showed up, right? Guys that you probably didn't think, like, Walker Buehler, excuse me, and Flaherty, 2 guys that, Buehler came back and pitched well and was basically pitching like a top starter. Yamamoto was kind of on and off all season, but when he got to the playoffs, he was damn good. And Jack Flaherty, who they got in the trade with Detroit, was damn good in the playoffs as well. So I don't believe any roster is worth saying, oh, well, the Mets don't have the pitching. Well, this team doesn't have the offense. This team doesn't have that. That team doesn't have this. We have to understand now that the Major League Baseball playoffs is like the NHL playoffs. That's a fact. It's not always the best team going to run through a league and get to the World Series in the American or the National League. It's not like that anymore, right? And I like it like this. You know why? Because you could be a third wildcard team and make the World Series or get to the NLCS like the Mets, facing the best team in baseball and the Dodgers and taking them to 6 games. And the Dodgers go out there and embarrass the Yankees in the World Series. Anybody can win. Just get into the playoffs. We saw it with the Diamondbacks a few years ago, right? That everybody laughed at the Arizona Diamondbacks. They got hot at the right time. They beat the vaunted Phillies that everybody considered them the favorites and embarrassed the Phillies. When the Phillies were up 3-1, the Arizona Diamondbacks won 3 in a row and won in Philly to get to the World Series and face the Rangers. Now, ultimately, that excitement, that magic that the Diamondbacks had got stopped by the Texas Rangers of all teams. The Texas Rangers that choked the division away, became a wild card team, and won a World Series. And guess what happened the following year after they won the World Series? They didn't even make the playoffs. So it's so up in the air, these Major League Baseball playoffs. The fact that you can say that the Mets aren't, that they suck, their pitching isn't good, doesn't mean their pitching won't be good, right? I talked about Sean Manaea, who has been, in my opinion, a disappointment since coming back. I think he should have been better at this point now, getting his pitch count up, getting his innings up. Hasn't really done that yet. But he is the freshest arm, along with Nolan McLean, in this. Well, I'm not going to say Nolan McLean is the freshest arm because he's thrown over 110 pitches, innings this year. But Sean Manaea hasn't thrown a lot of innings. He's the freshest arm in this rotation. If Sean Manaea finds it and pitches close to what he did last year, that's the freshest arm. So you will have your guy at the top of your rotation who's very fresh. Now, I don't trust many other guys in this rotation. I think David Peterson kind of hit a wall with innings, which is getting up to another high limit of his career with innings, where back-to-back years, he hasn't done this in his career, where he's going to throw 160, 170 innings again in back-to-back years. He might hit a wall. So this is where you got to rely on Sean Manaea not throwing a lot of innings this year and having the fact that he was the man that David Stern says is our ace. He paid him like one. You pay $20 million like when he needs to be the guy. You can't keep on having these type of outings, and we have to wait until Nolan McLean to show how to pitch. Like, you can't have that. And I see people talking about Rob Manfred going on the broadcast yesterday with ESPN and talking about, the expansion of Major League Baseball and the divisions. And obviously it's going to be close proximity divisions where it's going to be East, West, Central, all that nonsense. It's going to be 4 divisions, and they're going to split them up into 4 teams. Obviously, they're going to add a team or 2 for expansion. But, I mean, I think it's so stupid. Like, it takes away from the Mets-Yankees series. Like, it's going to be fun because they're in your division, and it's going to matter more to play them every time because it's about your division. But, shit, man, do the Mets get any luck? You gotta be with the Yankees, the Phillies, the Red Sox. Like, Jesus, Lord, really? I mean, don't get me wrong. I love going to those games all the time. Like, I love to go to Yankee Stadium, 8 times a year because they're gonna go back when they do these divisions, which is gonna happen in a couple of years. And I think right after the CBA is gonna be when these divisions happen after the 2026 season. I mean, they're probably gonna go back to 19 times playing each one of your divisions or teams in your division, and you probably play a lot more National League and have it play in the American League not so often. I don't think they're gonna keep the schedule the same. But I'd love to go to Yankee Stadium and watch Mets Yankees 9 times out of the year. I'm not saying every time. I mean, who the hell wants to go to the Bronx 9 times out of the year? But going to Philly, going to Boston, like, that's cool. But right now, it's something that is going to happen probably during the CBA when they agree upon, whatever negotiations they're going to do. And yeah, comedian, I don't know if it's a horrible idea. I just think we're not used to it. But again, I'd understand, right? I know the American League and National League, but with the interleague play every day now, there's not really an American League and National League until you get to the playoffs. We know that, right? This time with the new divisions, now the playoffs are just going to go by rank. Right? You could be playing the Yankees in the wild card series, right? So now it's all about, it's going to be the top, 6 teams in the league, or 16. It's going to be all 12 teams. So the top 12 teams when it comes to records is going to make the playoffs now. So that's going to be interesting how they're going to do it. I don't know if they're going to break it up with, Eastern teams with Central teams. I don't know how they're going to do it playoff wise, if it's just going to be best records throughout the league and that's how they'll do it. I don't know. Like, if you win the division, you're automatically in the playoffs, but then the wild card is going to be based on records as well. So I don't know how they're going to do that. That's going to be fascinating to me, right? You got to change it up sometimes. And I do think the problem with sports now, it's become very localized. Baseball has done a terrible job nationally around the country. Now, that's baseball's fault. See how the NBA has grown nationally over, not now, I think it's a terrible product, but overall, they become very big in this country nationally. Why? Because of ESPN, and it's all about the players. It's not about the team, right? You walk down New York, you'll see a LeBron James jersey with a Laker jersey. You'll see Kevin Durant jerseys. You'll see, teams that are not New York teams jerseys, because it's more nationalized. Especially this new generation, they don't care about teams anymore. It's about individual players. That is the problem with baseball, is that it's not an individual game, right? People draw to Durant and LeBron James and players like that because you can have individual success without your team having success. And people will draw to that, right? LeBron James was the biggest thing since sliced bread in the NBA. He won nothing until he basically went to Miami, but everybody had his jersey. So baseball is never going to be like that. It's hard to have an individual guy like a LeBron James in baseball, right? Mike Trout, nobody gave a shit nationally because he was in no man's land to the second team in LA. And he was the best player in baseball for years. So when it comes, that's why hockey is the same issue, right? That's why football, it's become the quarterback, right? The quarterback gets all the attention. So there's individual success, with the quarterback. Everybody flocks to the quarterbacks, right? At the top of the draft, if there's a top quarterback available that is worth getting at the top of the draft, it's all about him. And we all know you can have the best quarterback in the world. If you don't have a good line, that quarterback's not going to be very good. So it goes back to hockey and baseball. It's a very localized sport. And I think, and not that I agree with the new divisions and all that stuff, but if you really think about how to grow the game locally, it's better to have Mets, Yankees, Red Sox, Phillies together because it draws a rivalry within the localized area. The Northeast will have big rivalries now, right? We'll have it with the Phillies. Yes, we have it with the Yankees, but the Mets, Red Sox, rivalry is nothing. But I think localizing it and localizing the rivalries is what will get, I think, a little bit more into the baseball aspect of things, of localized the rivalries, making the rivalries more important. The Mets-Yankees rivalries is only bragging rights, right? The only time when it really did matter was the 2000 World Series with Mets-Yankees. The only time the Red Sox and Mets mattered was in the 1986 World Series, right? The only time the Mets and Phillies matter is all the time because we're in the same division. That's why it's important. If the Phillies played in the Central, we wouldn't care about the Phillies that much. So that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to localize rivalries within a region, Northeast, Northwest, Southwest, all that stuff, because it's going to be more important to the fans. You're going to draw more fans if people are talking about Astros, Rangers, Yankees, Mets, Phillies, Red Sox. You know what I'm saying? So that's what they'll do. And it will build rivalries that could have existed years ago, but because they're not in the same division or even in the same league, nobody cares. And easy, I don't like it either. I'll be the first one to tell you that. But you have to understand why they're doing that, right? Globally, baseball's taken off. In the Caribbean, in Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Venezuela, Ecuador, all these Latin American countries, South American countries, they're playing more baseball. Look what the baseball's trying to do with London and Europe, right? We all are on X, right? You got the UK Mets, UK Phillies, right? That's a brand now. Like, that's what they're trying to do, right? We know about Asia and how big baseball is there, right? They're worried. They've been focusing so long on global eyes on their product that they forgot about the localized eyes, the country's eyes. This was the national pastime for a reason. Baseball mattered to this country a lot more than the other sports, right? The NFL took off because why? Why did it take off? And NFL didn't go nationally just yet. Why did it become the biggest sport? Because baseball failed to grow within the country when other sports started to grow. They started to put out a better product. The steroids hurt it. For sure, it hurt it, right? I loved the steroid era. It was great, right? Watching McGuire, watching Bonds, watching Sosa, it was great. But it impacted a lot of people. And people, that was still the national pastime. That was still the best sport. Even though football was huge, baseball was still the sport. Football became an icon, a product, where it's on every station, right? You can turn on a station during Sunday, you'll find a football game. Baseball, you didn't have that. If the Mets weren't playing, it wasn't national. You had a couple of ESPN games. You had Sunday Night Baseball. But you can turn on Monday, Thursday, Sunday, Saturday sometimes at the end of the year. You'll find football. Christmas, now you have football. Thanksgiving is a staple. The Mets don't really, the baseball doesn't have a day where it's like football and turkey is Thanksgiving. We all know that. What does baseball have? Baseball should have Labor Day, right? Baseball should have the 4th of July. What sports are going on during the 4th of July? Baseball, it has all its eyes on them. They kind of watered down the product to the point where people don't care locally anymore. Have you walked down New York? Have you walked down, states that have teams? Like, look at New York. New York is a metropolis. It's diverse. It's everybody's there, right? Until it's playoff times, you'll see people wearing Mets and Yankees jerseys, Yankee Met hats, and all that fun stuff while they're in the playoffs. Exactly, Jay. NFL is a TV show, unfortunately. But again, we'll get to that point, right? We'll bitch and moan about that when it happens, because it will happen. And I don't think it's going to happen until after the CBA is figured out. So, and yeah, the strike in the 90s didn't help. The delay in the season a couple of years ago did not help. It's a problem. And, it makes people really pissed off. So it is what it is. Easy, I agree with you. But I do think it's cool that you can, the Mets are playing in Kansas City. I think it's cool. Like, you played that team in a World Series in 2015. We barely played them since then. Like, I'd like to play them. In 2016, we did play them. It just happened the schedule worked out that way. But I do think it comes back to the fact that when it comes to localized sports, baseball failed. Right? Go out to the parks. Do you see baseball fields filled anymore like it used to be? When I grew up, there was not a day, obviously with school, but during the summer, you would walk past the baseball field, softball field, didn't matter. Kids were playing. They're not doing that no more. Now it's soccer. Now it's lacrosse. Even you go to a football field, it's packed with kids in Pop Warner and all that. It's not the same anymore. Walk around this country and find a baseball field. The grass is growing. The field is terrible because baseball failed. Soccer is growing in this country because soccer took the time to put money into it. Baseball stopped. Baseball thought it was just going to, continue to grow and be the national pastime without doing anything. Like, you go to any, look, I live in North Carolina. I live in Cary. I can walk 3 blocks and find a soccer field. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can find a soccer field. And on Sundays and the weekends, there's hundreds of kids playing soccer. That is not an American sport, but it's become a brand here now. There's sponsors all over the place with soccer, right? I see youth sports signs all over the place in my neighborhood. Football, lacrosse, basketball, soccer. And, you'll find the occasional sign that's like this big about baseball, youth baseball, and youth softball. Baseball failed because they didn't put money into the youth when soccer did, football did, lacrosse did. Even hockey. Like, there is the U.S. under 18 or those baseball players, there's a field not too far from where I'm living right now for the U.S. under 18 team. Right? It's not popular. It's not. You go to those games, if you got 100 people there, it's a lot. So it's a problem. Easy, I agree with you. But you know what? I didn't have a lot of money growing up. I didn't. You know what? I had a very used glove, very old cleats. But I found my way to play, even if it was rec leagues. Here's a perfect example, and we'll get into the Mets a little bit more since this is a big topic. When I was growing up, right, my parents didn't have a lot of money, right? They worked hard, but I didn't have the money to go on travel teams. I didn't. I'm not gonna lie, but you know what? Every Saturday and Sunday, I find myself playing, pickup games with just random people. And you're like, hey, you need an extra player? Yeah, sure. Where do you play? I'm like, anywhere. So, they'll throw my little ass in center field. You know what? I'll never forget. And now this was softball, but it was early on. I was still young. I was playing baseball, but it was just softball, right? I know my local school had a softball field. So I used to go there on the weekends. And I used to go there during the 4 or 5 o'clock hours of the day where they used to play softball when it started to get warmer in May and June. I just went there. My parents can afford me to join a league, right? So I used to go there all the time. So what did I do? I went there all the time. I played. One day, right? There was going to be a softball game played. It was a softball league, but it had boys and girls together. And I was there before they were playing. I was practicing with them, just throwing the ball. And I was playing catch. They were hitting balls. They were practicing their swings, hitting balls like batting practice. I was in center field. This guy hit a shot to center field. Like, I mean, a moonshot. Nobody thought anybody was going to catch it. I'm running back. I don't know how far I ran, but it felt like forever. And remember, I'm like 12, 13 years old. I run back to center field, running my life off. And I made a catch over my head that basically knocked me to the ground. And I rolled. And there was a coach that was coaching one of the softball teams. I forgot his name. If I remember, and if they're watching, it would be crazy if they're watching, but if they are, I never forget this. He was like, everybody's high-fiving me, giving me a nice catch. The coach came up to me and goes, "Hey, you want to join the team? You want to join my team?" I go, "Well, I don't have the money to do." He goes, "Don't worry about it." Gave me a jersey and I started playing that season. And I played every year since. I played softball, I played baseball, all that stuff. Like, that doesn't happen anymore. If I was young in today's age, I wouldn't have been playing, pick up baseball or just practicing with random people that have teams, because you don't see it anymore. That is how I got introduced to league and team atmosphere, team games. And it's crazy. But you know what? Go to the Dominican Republic, right? Barely have gloves. You remember one of the things, I forgot, was it Jose Reyes, where his first glove was a milk carton? Like, they find a way to play. They played with rocks with a stick. Like, you can find a way. Like, go to Asia. Go to the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Venezuela. That obviously we know about their economy, but they find ways to have leagues and play. Right? Baseball failed. And unfortunately, and yeah, video games have a lot to do with it. Like, look, technology has a lot to do with it, right? When you can stay home, be on YouTube and be, watching TV, playing video games, that's a big deal now, right? I didn't have a phone when I was 12, right? Phones barely existed. Cell phones barely existed, right? We had those block Nokia phones. That was when I grew up as a 12, 13-year-old. I was outside every day. We didn't have this. We didn't. I don't have the camera. I didn't have a laptop. I barely had a Windows computer, right? We didn't have that. So, unfortunately, what happened, right? People got lazier. The youth stays inside. Again, go outside. You see kids riding their bikes all the time, playing sports? No. If they're not doing it based in a league that their parents probably forced them to do, they're not playing outside. They're inside. I live in North Carolina now. I can sit outside. You want to hear a pin drop. That's how quiet it is. Even on the weekends. I would have to go to a field to find actual team sports. Kids playing. And half of them are standing around. Probably don't want to be there because they want to watch whatever stupid show they have on YouTube or stream on YouTube or play a video game. It wasn't like that when I was growing up. We didn't have that, right? Parents used to say, "Hey, when them street lights come on, you come inside." That's what I used to do. So Bayonet, of course they're going to do that, right? They're globalizing it, but Little League Baseball has been on ESPN for years. Even when I was little, I remember Little League Baseball. So, Jay, that's the thing, right? Soccer is simple, but what does soccer have that baseball doesn't? You're constantly active if you're on the field, right? You're running back and forth. You might not get the ball, but you're running back and forth. You're in the game. What are you doing when you're not hitting or you're on the field? You're sitting on the bench watching a game. Like that has kids nowadays don't like that. They think it's boring. How many kids have you come across saying that baseball is boring? Now, if you sit them down and make them understand the game, which I think parents have failed at, you understand the game, you can look at what's going on in the game and keep yourself occupied and figure out what's going on, right? You don't have to sit there twiggling your thumbs waiting for you to get your at-bat or be on the field and the ball's not getting hit to you, right? Basketball, there's 10 guys on the court, right? 5 guys, you're most likely going to get the ball. So it's active. Baseball is more of a sedentary kind of sport if you're not on the field or at-bat. So I understand that. But too many times, parents don't teach them the game of baseball. They don't understand the ins and outs of the baseball. Like, hey, why is that second baseman playing closer to the bag at second base when there's a guy on first? Well, he's trying to play in double of double play depth, right? Things like that. Why is the outfielders coming in with a guy on third with less than 2 outs? Well, you know what? If there's a sac fly, they're going to try to gun the guy at home. So playing a little bit shallow gives them a better opportunity to throw the guy out at home. Little things like that, right? Why is that guy bunting with a guy on first and nobody out? Trying to move the runner over to get him in scoring position. Stuff like that. Like, it's not, the game is not taught like I was taught. And it doesn't happen like that anymore. In basketball, right? Why is basketball such a terrible game now? Because everybody cares about, oh, look what I can do. I can dribble between my legs and make it and shoot up a 60-foot shot. Why do you think people love Steph Curry? Because he can shoot it from center court. Like it's not basketball anymore. It's a game of shots. They'll shoot 60 shots in a game and make 20 of them. Like, that's terrible. But people like that. Same thing goes for football. It's a terrible game right now. Right? Remember when defense used to win championships? No. Now, you don't have the Ravens anymore with their vaunted defense that win championships. Now it's all about the quarterback and how far can he throw it. The running game is non-existent. How important was the running game in the 90s? I know. I'm a Cowboy fan. I remember Emmitt Smith bottling through linemen. Like, that's the problem nowadays. It's just the game has got watered down, and we all don't like it. We don't even like baseball the way it's played now, where average doesn't mean nothing. Strikeouts don't mean nothing. Stolen base is starting to become a thing, but they had to change the rules to do so. Bunting, small ball, isn't a part of baseball anymore. It's home runs and OPS. That's what everybody cares about now. But don't tell a Met fan that, because Juan Soto's OPS is almost 900, and he has 30 home runs and 20 stolen bases. But he's having a bad season because all they'll talk about is the solo home runs. You see the problem with that? It's crazy to me. But I digress, because we got to talk about some Mets baseball. And there still hasn't been an injury update in my I haven't looked at my phone. I've been talking it up with you guys since we've been talking about in regards to baseball and what has happened. And the divisions have a lot to do with it, and why I think they're kind of localizing the divisions based on, geography. So I think that's the reason why. To get people more involved in baseball, you got to localize it a little bit more. And if you can localize rivalries on a daily basis, I think that's what they're trying to do. And I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. Look, at least baseball's trying something, right? They spent millions and billions of dollars probably on the international market. They got to start spending their money back in the local market in this country, in my opinion. And that's a start. I don't like it, but I understand why they're doing it, right? Because nobody cares about Mets Royals, but you know what? More people might care about Mets Red Sox. More people might care about Mets Yankees. Mets, Phillies, Yankees, Phillies, Yankees, Red Sox, Yankees, Phillies, Red Sox, Phillies. They might care about that, especially teams in the Midwest. Having the Royals play the Cardinals more often in the division that matters, it might drive a fan base. It might drive more people to become fans. Not saying it's going to work, but at least they're trying something. So with the Alvarez injury, we don't know yet what's going on. As I said earlier, I don't believe it's good news. Then why are they taking this long? There's no need to take it this long. They're probably going over all their options. Hopefully it's not surgery related, because, again, he took this MRI earlier this morning. He wasn't in the West Coast. They were in Pennsylvania. It's a quick flight to New York. He took the MRI very early this morning. Now, they probably got a second opinion as well, but it's already 6:30. They know what's going on. They have an idea of what the MRI says. They're either going over their options surgery-wise or whatever. Can he still play if he doesn't have surgery, after an IL stint? But we'll see. That's, it's frustrating because we finally won a series. The Mets looked good. The last 4 games, not one pitcher pitched less than 5 innings. Imagine that. Now, it wasn't 6, 7, 8 innings, but it was 5 innings, 5 1/3, 5 2/3, 5 1/3, right? It makes it a little bit easier to navigate a game if you're Mendoza. And yes, we lost 2 of those games out of the 4, but we know why that was the case, because the bullpen didn't hold leads. But again, when it was less guys you had to use overall when you go 5+ innings. And it's nice to see. Is Parada an option? I don't think so. Because are they looking now again? I haven't looked at Parada's numbers, and we'll look at it, right? I'll look at it right now for you guys. And hold on, the Mets tweeted something. Let me just find. No, people are still talking about we haven't got news yet. All right, sorry about that. Let me just check Kevin Parada's stats. I think he's in Double A if I'm not mistaken. Is he injured right now? Is this recent? No, that was a couple of years ago. Okay, sorry. Let's see his stats. So he's batting .251 with 9 home runs and 43 RBIs. Not terrible. And he's playing for, who's he playing for? Binghamton right now. So he's played 81 games. Not terrible. 20 doubles, not bad. 43 RBIs, 9 home runs, 28 walks, 87 strikeouts. Strikeouts are high. On base is 321, almost the best of his career. Slugging is higher than any part of his career. His OPS is 750. Not terrible, not great. Again, they could do that, but I don't see them doing that. Again, if you're going to bring up Kevin Parada, you're going to play him. And that's what I don't think people understand. Like, you can't bring up Kevin Parada and do what you did to every one of these guys that have been up here already in Beatty, Acuna, Vientos, Mauricio. You got to play these guys. Like, I'm sick and tired of bringing these kids up and making them bench players and making them backup. It's not helping their progress. Like, Kevin Parada needs to play every day. And I don't know. I know his defense has been a problem over the last couple of years, that the Mets didn't like the way he was, blocking balls and stuff like that. Maybe that's changed. I don't know. I don't watch him every day. But you got to play these guys. Acuna shouldn't be up here sitting on the bench. The same thing goes for Mauricio, Beatty, and Vientos. Like, somebody's sitting down. Tomorrow, I'd be shocked if all three of them are playing. Like, Vientos hit a big home run yesterday. He's probably going to play. At least we hope so, right? You would think he would play. But we've seen this story before. So, I don't know. I'd rather just throw up Hayden Senger. You know what you're going to get from Luis Torrens. You're going to get great defense, and you're going to get a cannon behind the plate. At least Hayden Senger has a little bit more bat skills than Luis Torrens. He'll play a couple of times a week, but nothing special, right? We're going to lose the offense regardless. I don't think Kevin Parada is going to come up here and be an offensive juggernaut. And again, why do we need that? You got Lindor, you got Soto, you got Nimmo, you got Alonso. That should be enough. And by the way, with Lindor on the prowl right now, I think we're okay. Like, Soto's been fine. Pete Alonso's been good. Nimmo has been okay. Lindor has been red hot. You're winning with those guys. Francisco Alvarez shouldn't make or break this offense, to be quite honest with you. It should help the offense, but Luis Torrens shouldn't be a topic of conversation of, oh my God, the offense sucks because of Luis Torrens. If you're talking about that, then the top 4 guys are not doing their job. So it is what it is. In my opinion, bring up Hayden Senger. He's a fine backup. Luis Torrens ain't going to wow you, but here's what I know. He's going to play good defense. He works well with the pitchers. And we'll see how that goes. Yeah, I agree. I truly thought that Kevin Parada was going to be a fast track to the majors, but he's not played well. He's played better this year, and it's probably one of his better seasons prior to his first minor league stint when he first got drafted, but he's been better. But again, if he doesn't work out and you bring him up and he fails, you're going to send him back down. And you're not playing him over Luis Torrens. You're just not doing that. You got 38 games to go, guys. We don't have time to play these games. People seem to forget that. Like, oh, bring up Luis Acuna, let him sit on the bench for 6 days, and maybe he'll get a pinch running chance or a defensive replacement chance. Like, that's not developing a guy. Like, bring these guys up if you know for sure these guys are ready to perform and help us win. Not sit on the bench just because we're excited to see him at the big league level. Like, I'm sick and tired of that. We got 38 games to go here. Right? I don't need Kevin Parada striking out in big spots. And, he's still young. That's what we're going to talk about while we're losing a playoff spot? I don't need to be dealing with that right now. Luis Torrens is a professional, right? He's played this role before. step in for Francisco Alvarez. Listen, it's Francisco Alvarez's fault for getting hurt. Look, the slide happens, that shit happens. Right? But did you see how he slid? Like, these guys don't look. You remember slide-in drills in baseball, in high school, in Little League, in college? We had slide-in drills to learn properly how to slide. He basically plopped on the ground, basically hitting his leg first, his left leg first, and he bounced. And then he jammed his hand. Like, Dolo, why not? By the way, guys, did we all forget? Was it Luis Torrens a big part of April and May, or did we forget? Right? The Mets were winning with Luis Torrens behind the plate. Did we forget about that? Right? We were pretty good. Like, let's be honest. If you're talking about Luis Torrens being the problem with the lineup, guess who's not doing their job? Lindor, Soto, Alonso, Nimmo. That's what's going to matter during his next 38 games, not Luis Torrens. All right? Brett Beatty should have a bigger role than Luis Torrens. Jeff McNeil. Shit, Mark Vientos, Ronnie Mauricio. Those are the guys that should matter. Like, Luis Torrens, listen, I hate having catcher being an offensive possibility for our team. I think that is the worst way to go. Why? Because they get beat up all year, right? Cal Raleigh is an exception, not the rule. Why do you think catchers offensively aren't as good anymore? I don't know why, but it just seems like catchers need to be working on their defense and worrying about the pitchers. I don't care about their offense. Like, we're so occupied about Francisco Alvarez and his offense because the offense has sucked. And it's because of Soto, Alonso, Nimmo, Lindor is the reason why we're talking about, oh my God, we need Alvarez back. If we're going to be talking about the catching position offensively, we have more problems than Luis Torrens. The reason why people couldn't wait to get Alvarez back, we had no idea his offense was going to be good coming back, was because Luis Torrens was so bad and nobody was hitting that we're talking about Luis Torrens. That's the problem. Yeah, Dolo, he might be an automatic out, but you know what? You're not going to give a shit if everybody at the top is scoring their runs and doing what they're supposed to do, right? You're not going to have hitters 1 through 9. Find me a team that has hitters 1 through 9. Yeah, Dolo, I wouldn't want to be a catcher either. I get beat the hell up and I get no praise. And most of the time, like, having an offensive guy that you're counting on being a catcher is a dangerous game to play, in my opinion. I'd rather have a great defensive catcher that throws runners out and works well with the pitching staff. I don't need to be worried about Francisco Alvarez's offense when I need him good behind the plate. Like, there's other guys to worry about in this lineup. If guys do their job in this lineup, we're not going to care about Luis Torrens doing what he's doing offensively or the lack of offense. Yeah, the Brewers, that's fine. But can the Brewers actually win a playoff series? That would be nice, right? They've showed no signs of winning in the playoffs. They're the best record in baseball right now, but we all know how does that work out all the time, right? That doesn't mean they can't win. I'll be the first one to say that. But they're a team that completely fails every year in the playoffs and never wins. And they constantly have teams just like this offensively, where they don't hit a lot of home runs, and all they need is one pitcher to shut them down and not, because how do they score a lot of their runs, right? They'll hit 5, 6 base hits in a row, right? They'll have the merry-go-around on the base paths. But that doesn't happen in the playoffs. We see this all the time. When does a team like that put 6, 7 hits together in an inning? It's usually the 3-run bomb, right? It's usually, a 2-run homer, a big 2-run homer, right? But again, I'm not saying they can't win. But those type of teams usually fall short in the playoffs, especially when they're facing great pitching every day. And in the playoffs, you basically face really good pitching. And you can't string 5, 6 hits together in an inning like they have been all season. So, listen. Yeah, and it's small ball. And again, small ball might work. And yeah, I agree, John. Like 7, 8, and 9 are usually the worst on your team. Like, let's be honest about that. If they were any good, they would be in the top 6. or even in the top 5. Right? You're not finding teams that have 7, 8, and 9 hitters hitting 30 home runs. So I think we're way too concerned about Luis Torrens, and we should be more concerned about the guys at the top doing their jobs, consistently doing what they have been doing over the last week. They've been scoring 6 runs per game over the last 10-game stretch. That's a good sign. And you think it's mostly because, has Alvarez been a part of that? Absolutely. But Lindor's red hot. Alonso's picking it up. Soto has been solid. Nimmo has been good. Like that's why we're hitting better. It's not like we still, until yesterday, we didn't get nothing from Vientos. Beatty has been struggling. Even McNeil has taken a little bit of a step back, but he's been pretty decent. So the bottom of the order hasn't been doing the job anyway. It's been the top of the order that has been successfully scoring a lot of these runs and doing their job. But still, they got to continue it. Because, again, if we're going to argue about Luis Torrens offensively, we got more problems than Luis Torrens. Because the guys at the top are going to make or break the team offensively. Not Luis Torrens. And you know what? If Beatty does their job, Mauricio does their job, Vientos, McNeil, and the top 4 guys in the lineup, if they do their job, Luis Torrens should just be a body in this lineup that's a great catcher behind the plate, defensively. Yeah, okay. Well, Telly, can you name catchers around the league that are actually really good, that are great offensively and good defensively, right? Cal Raleigh, right? This is the first year he actually showed offensive potential. It's usually been him defensively, right? He struck out a ton last year. He lowered his strikeouts this year, and he's been a big difference, right? Real Muto isn't the same player anymore. How badly you think the Phillies would like Real Muto being an offensive guy again? But he's older. He's an older catcher now. He isn't as good as he was 3 years ago. 2 years ago. Right? Will Smith hasn't been the same player as he was a couple of years ago. He's still decent, but not great. But again, the Dodgers are winning because of Will Smith, or are they winning because of Ohtani and Freeman and Betts? That's winning. Contreras, I agree. But are the Cubs winning because of Contreras? Or even the Brewers? It's been, the Turangs, those type of guys. Right? Take Cal Raleigh off the Seattle Mariners, they probably wouldn't be as good. But Cal Raleigh was there last year. He wasn't very good. Well, like I said, the way the Mets are built, it's not on their catcher. Like, teams are built differently, right? The Phillies aren't built because of Real Muto being their catcher. They're built around Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber, Turner. They're built around those guys, not built around Real Muto. You take Alvarez off the Mets, it shouldn't destroy the Mets offensively. You take Cal Raleigh off the Mariners, they're a subpar team. You take Contreras off the Brewers, is it going to derail them the way they play? Probably not. Real Muto, you take Real Muto off the team offensively, is that going to make a difference of how good their offense is? No, it's not. It's not. Salvador Perez, yeah, is the only consistent catcher, and he's what, near 40 years old now? Like, the Royals have done nothing with Salvador Perez being their best player for years. Bobby Witt's there now, and they're still not doing enough, right? I don't think your best player can be a catcher, right? You want to ask the Baltimore Orioles how that's working out? Basically, their best player was their catcher. But again, your catcher gets beat up. When you have your best player being a catcher, that shit's going to haunt you at some point. Maybe not this year. Like, Cal Raleigh might continue to do this throughout the postseason if the Mariners make it. But it's not going to last, because it doesn't last. Salvador Perez has been an enigma compared to the other players around the league. Yeah, Piazza, but see, baseball was different then. Baseball was much different then. You had guys 5, 6 deep that were hitting 300. You don't have that anymore in baseball. Piazza was a power guy because most catchers were power guys. Most guys, around the league, they were hitting 15 home runs, but they were batting 300. Nowadays, your shortstop's a 30 home run guy. Your right fielder is a 30 home run guy. Shoot, your first baseman is now a 40 home run guy, where your first baseman wasn't always your best player. Remember how first base was kind of like, hey, you got to be good defensively, but not great offensively. It was always the third baseman, the right fielder. The shortstop used to be the worst offensive player on teams. They were just good defensively. Now that shifted. Now you got shortstops hitting 30 home runs. Like, baseball changes. Like, catching offensively used to be an important thing. It's not anymore. Now, it's trying to go back to that a little bit. But again, these guys don't stay healthy enough. And again, these guys constantly get hurt. They get beat up behind the plate. If your best offensive player is your catcher, find me in 2 years when they're not very good offensively because they're beaten up. So with Alvarez, if this breaks the New York Mets offensively, we got bigger fish to fry with this New York Mets team than just Alvarez being hurt. I'm being fully honest with you. If the Mets can't continue to score without Alvarez, then that's a bigger detriment on the top 4 guys in this lineup. And we better have a conversation about them even more, about how bad they are. Not about, okay, great, CB, Joe Mauer. How did the Twins do all those years? How did having a great catcher offensively and defensively help the Minnesota Twins? They never beat the Yankees. They never went to the promised land. They constantly choked in the playoffs, even when they had the best record in baseball, or one of the best records in baseball at the time. Joe Mauer got him nothing. Yeah, easy. I agree with you, but I'm talking about individual times in baseball where shortstops were only defensive guys. Right? At times, the shortstop was never a good hitter, especially not a power hitter. Find me a 30 home run shortstop 15, 20 years ago. A-Rod was an anomaly. That's why everybody was like, wow, look at his shortstop, big power guy. Derek Jeter wasn't a big homer guy, but he was a 300 hitter. He got clutch hits, right? There was first basemen that were great, but when I grew up in the 90s, it was all about the offensive power catcher. Now it's right field, it's shortstop, right? Anybody can be a power hitter now. So there is no update on Alvarez yet, which again is concerning to me, in my opinion. Yeah, I don't think we should lose our senses about Alvarez if he's out. Again, if this makes or breaks the Mets offense, we have to really have a serious conversation in regards to Francisco Lindor, Alonso, McNeil, Nimmo, Soto. If you do not continue to hit offensively and Alvarez is the problem, then we're going to have a lot to talk about this offseason because the Mets are making the playoffs. This should not break the offense. Alvarez has been solid, but he wasn't a world beater. Could we be honest about that? He's been fine. He's been See, here's the problem. He was better than what he was being very bad. So we think that he's doing great. He's doing good. But he's also was just better than what he was, and that was terrible. Same thing goes for Mark Vientos. He hits a home run yesterday. Everybody, oh my God, Mark Vientos, he's back. Swaggy V. Like, did you forget the other 122 games? He looked good at the plate one time, and we all forget about the 120 games he was terrible. Like, if they get a little bit better than what they were terrible all year, then we just assume, oh, they're back. But this shouldn't make or break. Like, to be honest with you, Mark Vientos should be more important to this Mets offense than Francisco Alvarez. Why? Because the Mets were successful last year with a bad Francisco Alvarez. That should give you everything you need to know about how important Francisco Alvarez is offensively to this team. The reason why we're so desperate for Alvarez actually showing something was because Vientos sucks. The offense has been doing what they were doing. But we were really good offensively since June last year without Francisco Alvarez doing anything. We forget about that. Yeah, tell you, I agree with you. 1100 OPS again. Stop me with this OPS nonsense, please. Right? Because everybody hates Juan Soto, but he has nearly a 900 OPS. So I don't want to hear about OPS. I don't. I that stat is the most useless stat that everybody loves to use when they have an argument. Right? Again, we can have an argument. You want to talk about the 1100 OPS of Alvarez? I want to talk about the 880 OPS of Juan Soto. But you're going to say, oh, but he has 21 home runs solo. Oh, okay. OPS is the biggest flawed stat known to man. It's just that everybody uses it now as the end-all be-all of a player, and it's so stupid. It is terrible. You know, how many strikeouts does he have? Right? How's his on base? Talk about stuff like that. Stuff that always mattered. OPS was a stat that nobody used until 5-6 years ago and made it out to be a big thing. Like, I don't want to hear about OPS. I'm sick of OPS. Because if you're not going to use it for a guy like Juan Soto, don't use it for a guy like Alvarez. It's silly to me. Well, Easy, that's the thing, right? And Jonathan, I'll get to your super chat, and I appreciate that. 1 second, right? Easy just said, would Met fans rather sit Marte and DH Mark Vientos? You know what? Here's the problem with Met fans. They will say yes. But they don't care about Marte because he's a 36-year-old bench player. Yet he's been better offensively than most of these guys on his team. But they want to see Mark Vientos because they get a little jolt in the arm because of the home run yesterday. And they'll talk about last year, even though Marte last year was one of our best hitters in the postseason and has been our best offensive player other than Francisco Lindor since he's come back from the IL. That's the problem with Met fans. That's the problem. And it's frustrating as hell. I don't want to see Vientos in the lineup because he hit one home run. He finally took an outside pitch to the opposite field. And then, again, I swear to God, X blew up yesterday after the Alvarez's home run, Vientos' home run. Oh, I told you so. What did you tell me? You told me that he closed his eyes and finally hit a ball to the opposite field after 400 at-bats? Please, I don't want to hear that nonsense. You know what? Do it for the next week, and then we'll have a conversation about Vientos being in the lineup consistently. Because right now, I don't trust him. Because if he goes 0 for 4 tomorrow in Washington, what is everybody going to say? Oh, well, yeah, he's the same goddamn player. Right? Drive the goddamn ball. You want to be consistently playing? Hit more balls over the wall because you suck defensively. You're not good defensively, so you don't have a position. You played third base yesterday because there's nobody out there you can trust offensively, so everybody's getting a shot. Yet you still don't look good at third base. Your footwork still sucks. You're positionless, and you can't even hold the DH position where your best asset is your bat because Starling Marte at 36 years old has been a better hitter than you all year. So save me with that nonsense. Don't bring up OPS because you want to fill an argument for yourself. Because I can come back with every player on this team and talk about OPS and have an argument with you. OPS is the useless stat. People love to use it now, and it's so annoying. But yet they won't use it for Juan Soto. They'll only talk about his solo home runs. So don't bring me that argument about Alvarez 1100 OPS. Please. He's been better than what he was earlier in the season, which was terrible. And we consider that, oh my God, so great. No, he's just been better than what he was. And that's fine. But we're talking about Francisco Alvarez being an extra offensive possibility because we've won games because of Francisco Lindor. We won games because of Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo, Jeff McNeil. Alvarez should be a plus to that, not the exception. If the Mets lose and offensively they go down the drain, then that's a top of the lineup problem. That's not a Francisco Alvarez problem, right? Nobody talked about Francisco Alvarez last year when Vientos was hitting 27 home runs and Lindor was an MVP and Pete Alonso was not even having a good season. So how did we win last year? Oh, Jose Iglesias and OMG? Jesse Winker at the trade deadline? Come on. We know why we won. Because the big guys stepped up. Brandon Nimmo, Francisco Lindor was carrying this team. when Alonso was nowhere to be found. Francisco Alvarez wasn't even a shot on the radar. Jonathan, thank you for the super chat. Okay, when do we bring up the second kid, by the way? Well, it's going to happen with Brandon Sproat. You know why? Because starting tomorrow, we have 16 straight games in a row with no off day until September 4th. That is why Brandon Sproat's coming up. Probably the only reason why Brandon Sproat is coming up. Because why? Because let's talk about Kodai Senga. He's going to need an extra day off every time during their stretch. The only way to do that is bring up Brandon Sproat. That's it. Because I truly believe that there was off days in between this 16-game stretch, Brandon Sproat won't be up here. To be quite honest with you, I don't think Stearns wanted these guys to come up in the first place. His back was against the wall. That's why he did it. So because the Mets have a 16-game stretch of no off days, Brandon Sproat is going to pitch. Now, I think, in my opinion, his next start shouldn't be in AAA. It should be with the Mets. We'll see if that happens. Now, I don't know the last time Sproat pitched. I can check that out for you really quick. But let's just see. Hold on, guys. Sproat. Give me a second. Let me see the last time he pitched, and then we'll have a better understanding of when he can go again. All right, here we go. All right, his last start was it had to be recent because the last time I seen him pitch was August 14th. So he should be pitching over the next day or two, which I don't think that's happening. So I'm assuming his next time. So I'm assuming it's going to be around the either Atlanta series or back home against the Phillies. So he'll probably come up around that time. So I don't think he's going to come up his next start, but his start after that. So again, look at the Atlanta series and look at the Philly series. Atlanta on the road and Philly at home. That's the only thing I can think of, Jonathan. So. All right, let's see. Well, Met fans rather sit. Well, we already talked about that. I'm trying to catch up on the comments, guys, as we got over 575 people in this stream right now from X and YouTube. So that's awesome. I appreciate that. Hit that like button, guys, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed yet. Stanley, Tong is not coming up here, guys. I find that unless there's a big injury, I don't think Tong's coming up here. Sproat is going to come up here. It's just a matter of when. Truman, I hope Swaggy V is back. If he is, it's going to help. But right now, one game is not going to change my mind. We've seen this story before all year. Like, he'll hit a home run, and then he'll go 0 for 10 in his last 10 at-bats. So we'll see. Again, let him be more consistent, and we'll be okay. And, yeah, let's go Mariners, by the way. We just beat them, but, hey, get back on track and beat the Phillies for us. Because I want to get to that Philly series, guys. I know we got the Nationals. I know we got Atlanta before that. But I want to get to the Philly series within striking distance of that division. And by the way, guys, look at the number one wild card. We're 4.5 games. Or now it's 4 games because the Cubs lost. But we're 4 games from the Cubs. We're 5 games from the Phillies. We are right there in every aspect of the top wild card and the division. Again, you don't need to play great. The Phillies haven't played great. The Mets are 3-7. You know what the Phillies are? 5-5. Right? All we have to do is play a little bit better. We don't even got to play great, even though we all would love it. Like, give me 8 wins in a row. You know, go 8-2 in their next 10. I guarantee you we'll be right there with the Phillies again. Get to the Philly series within 3 games. That's a 2-game difference from what we currently are at. Get us within 3 games going into that Philly series. That is without Zack Wheeler. Get within 3 games, and at that moment, I think it will be 32 games left in the season by the time we get to that Philly series on August 25th. Get to that series within a 3-game gap. Hopefully closer. That would be great. But at least 4 games. But I want to be 3 games at the very least. That would be what I would like. Get to that Philly series where that can change the outcome of the division. That can get us right back in it. Now, that could bury us as well, but I want to get to that point, being 3 games from the division when we face Philly on the 25th of August. But again, the Mets got to do their jobs. They got to beat up on Washington. They got to beat up on Atlanta. 2 bad teams. At the very least, as I talked about yesterday on the post game, the New York Mets at least need to go 4-2 on this 6-game home road trip. If they don't, it's going to be very disappointing. I don't want 3-3. I don't want that. I don't think that against a bad Nationals team and a bad Braves team, even though they always play us well, 4-2 is the minimum in my opinion. Anything less is a disaster in my opinion. 3-3 is not a disaster, but it's disappointing. 2 and anything else is a disaster. I want 4-2 at least coming back home because I truly believe this. If we go 4-2, I'm very confident we will be within 4 games at least going into that Philly series, in my opinion. I truly believe that because the Phillies haven't played well. They just lost their ace. Like, they're not going to get better, in my opinion. They've been playing this way for a month where they've been playing basically 500 baseball. If the Mets weren't so bad, we'd be right there with them in the division. So be better. 4-2 minimum, in my opinion. Yeah, and CB, exactly. We got 7 games left with the Phillies. And right now, we lead the season series 4-2. Because we swept them, and they took 2 out of 3 against us. So we're up 4-2 in the 6 games. 7 games to go here, right? Tiebreakers are going to come into play here. I truly believe it's going to come down to the wire with the Mets and the Phillies. I think the Mets and the Phillies are both going to make the playoffs. And by the way, guys, if the Phillies start to lose a little bit and the Mets start to win, guess where the Phillies are going to be? They're going to be a 3rd wild card team. And we're not far from the 2nd wild card or the 1st wild card. You want to be comfortably. And again, the only team you got to worry about is the Reds, who are a game and a half behind the Mets in the 3rd wild card. The Cardinals are the next best team behind the Reds at 5.5 games in front of us or behind us. So it's a 2-team race for the 3rd wild card. You want to be comfortably in that wild card spot. So we'll see how that goes. And we do got 7 games against the Phillies. Let's see. Check the comments really quick, guys. Jonathan, so a 6-man rotation? Probably. I think they have to go to that. Like, you can't give Kodai Senga a day off, an extra day, playing 16 games in a row. Where are you going to do that? Or unless you do an opener and not pitch Senga on his scheduled 5th day. But who wants to do that? All you're going to do is destroy your bullpen in an opener. And with a 16-game stretch, you can't afford to overuse your bullpen. So the last 4 games, the New York Mets starting pitchers have gone at least 5 innings. 5 1/3, 5 2/3, 5 innings like that. If they can consistently do that, that saves your bullpen pitching an extra inning. Give me 5 innings, the occasional 6th inning. That would be great. That's what they got to do. And hopefully they continue that. They had good performances over the last 4 games. Yeah, we lost 2, but we had good starting quality starts. Which starts with, and again, Manaea wasn't great, but he did pitch 5 innings. I at least like to see that. He gave me a little bit more length than he did his previous start. Now I want him to get to that 5 2/3, 6 innings and pitch well. Because if Manaea doesn't, I don't know what this rotation is really going to do. Even with Sproat might possibly be coming and McLean pitching possibly well. Because he pitched 1 game. I'm not overly excited. I like what he did. There's a lot of good positives with McLean's start. But we don't know his next time out how he's going to pitch. We don't know that. It's still a question mark. We hope he's good, but it's still a question mark. And this entire rotation is still a question mark. I still don't trust Kodai Senga. I'm not sure what we're going to get from Manaea if he's going to build up his strength and his innings and his pitch count. David Peterson goes tomorrow. Great. But he had a terrible start his last time out. Again, you're not going to be overly upset about that because he was due one of those. But why did we just assume he didn't hit a wall? So there's still a lot of question marks. And the offense has been given the runs needed for the Mets to win. It's up to the pitching now to do their job once again. And we'll see if they can do that against a bad Nationals team and a bad Braves team going into the 6-game road trip. And we're going to continue looking at the comments really quick. City Field is haunted by Dave Kigman. And yes, Duran, thank you. Joan Duran got hurt as well. He got that line drive off his ankle, and I haven't seen the news, but I'm assuming he's out. He's day to day. I heard it sounded like ball on bone. Like you just heard a. That's what you heard. If you listen to it, of the ball hitting his ankle, that didn't sound good. And it's probably swelled up. And they just lost their closer right now. And their bullpen isn't that good. So, again, the Mets got a few things going here where the Phillies are kind of dealing with their ace and their closer right now, not on this team right now. So the Mets can take full advantage of this. You're on a 2-game winning streak. Keep it going. There should be no reason why you don't win these next 2 series. And look, I'm not asking for a sweep. I love a sweep. And the Mets should sweep the Nationals. But again, I'm not overly aggressive here in a situation where the Mets are starting to play a little bit better, but they're not there yet. But give me series wins. You get series wins, I guarantee we're going to be back in this race in the division. And by the time we get to Philly, I guarantee we're going to be within 4 games at the very least. Anything more than that, lower than that, great. I'd be very excited going into that Philly series. Maybe I'll take a trip to New York and see some Mets Phillies. But that's the important thing. Better pitching helps your bullpen. Better starting pitching helps your bullpen. Again, we will not survive an overused bullpen after this 16-game stretch. Because if we overuse our bullpen during this 16-game stretch of no off days, forget about September. Don't even bother. Because this bullpen is going to be well overused. We're going to need them in September. And our September schedule isn't that pretty. It's not easy against these teams. We're going to be playing the Reds. We got the Tigers right out of the gate in September. It's not going to be easy. So the starting pitching needs to step the hell up. All of them. Not just one, all of them. We got good guys, good arms, good names in this bullpen. This bullpen should be a plus for us. But overusing them ain't going to help shit. I don't care who's in this bullpen. If you overuse them, they're going to not pitch well. Because you got Tyler Rogers, who is good. You got Helsley, who is a good damn pitcher. You got Reed Garrett, who has been good, not of late, but has been solid. You got Diaz, who was one of the best closers in baseball. You got enough guys. You got Gregory Soto, who has been our best reliever, other than Edwin Diaz, since we got him. We got a good bullpen. If you overuse them, it means absolutely nothing who's in that bullpen. It doesn't matter. The offense has been scoring runs. They've been giving this team leads after leads after leads, inning after inning, game after game. We've lost too many games giving up leads. It's got to stop. We held the last 2 leads yesterday and the day before. That's a start. You got to continue it. You can't have teams like the Atlanta Braves coming back from a 6-0 deficit. You can't have that happen. You have that happen, sweep away the playoffs. Because don't even waste your time. You're not going to be able to sustain any type of success if you're going to blow those type of leads. When over the last, prior to the 2 wins in a row, we gave up 9 leads in 11 games. That can't happen. Can't happen. And it has happened too many times over this last month and a half. It's got to stop. And it starts with the starting pitching, having quality starts. 5 innings should be a minimum. We shouldn't be having conversations about multiple starters going 4 innings back to back over a week. Your bullpen will be shot to shit. And then we're going to be talking about more problems than worrying about the starting pitching, because we're going to be worried about the bullpen being overused once again. Because the starting pitching was good early on, they weren't going deep into games, which ultimately hurt our bullpen. It got guys injured, and it got guys overused by June. And then when June came around, we had starters injured. They weren't going deep into games. We were using openers, and our bullpen was shot by June, and we had our worst month in June. There's a reason for that. It's got to change. And if it doesn't change, we're going to be having a lot of conversations about this starting pitching fail. And then we can talk about David Stearns failing to help this starting pitching. And I don't know if Nolan McLean and Brandon Sproat are going to be a difference maker, because at the end of the day, we're still going to need Sean Manaea. We're still going to need David Peterson. We're still going to need Kodai Senga to help this rotation. Nolan McLean and Brandon Sproat are not the saviors. They're the help. If Manaea and his $20 million ain't going to do better, we got more problems than we actually think. If Kodai Senga can't figure it out by getting extra days off and can't get into the sixth inning and throw 100 pitches, we got more problems. If David Peterson hit a wall, we got bigger problems. And we're not going to be talking about Nolan McLean and Brandon Sproat being the difference makers of this rotation. They need to be help. Because Montaz sucks, Blackburn is gone, and these guys haven't been doing their job. That's why Nolan McLean is here. That is why Brandon Sproat is here, is to supplement this rotation, not to be the saviors. If you think they're going to be the saviors, I got a bridge to sell you. I truly do. So with the offense doing better, which the starting pitching showing some signs of life, we're starting to look like a team again. Imagine that. The New York Mets are an actual team, right? You see them having fun together. You see what winning does? When you're losing, you look like you have bad chemistry. You look like you have a team that's disorganized. You win, everybody's smiling. Everybody looks happy. Everybody's high-fiving and smiling and giggling and laughing. So it's not about chemistry being a problem. It's about not playing well and not doing your job. I wouldn't be smiling either if I can't help my team win. And you see that over the last couple of days. And I do think this Little League Classic game really brought this team together a little bit. It kind of calmed them down a little bit, in my opinion. I think it kind of make them have a deep breath, right? Have fun with the kids that are there and not overly think about games. And I think they calmed down a little bit, and I think it shows. Now, can they take that into Washington? Well, we'll see tomorrow. Our boy CP will be at those games, I believe. So he'll get a bird's eye view of the New York Mets hopefully turning things around. And they need to turn things around. 38 games to go. Month and a half of baseball. Game and a half up on the wild card. 5 games behind the Phillies. All doable. All obtainable. We can win this division. We can get that first wild card. We can make the playoffs. That should not be a question. As bad as the Mets have played, they have not been out of a playoff spot all year. That shouldn't change. This should be the exception right now. This should be a guarantee. This should be mandatory making the playoffs. That sustained success bullshit that Stern wants to talk about, I don't give a shit about that. I don't care about 2026. I don't care about 2027. I care about 2025. Right? Make the goddamn playoffs. You spent a ton of money. We have high expectations, so that automatically should have you make the playoffs just by how much you spent. Do your job from the 26th man on the roster to the number 1 guy on the roster. Do your job. This team is good enough to be a playoff team. This team should be a World Series contender. We know how the playoffs works now. Get in, anybody can win. That's including the Mets and their rotation that I don't trust. But that doesn't mean the Mets can't do it. There's no reason why the Mets can't be the Dodgers last year or the Rangers. Why can't they blow away teams offensively in the playoffs? Why can't they do that? They have a clutch Lindor. They have a clutch Pete Alonso in the playoffs. They have a clutch Juan Soto in the playoffs. Those guys should dominate playoff games. They've done it in their career. We've seen Pete Alonso do it last year. We've seen Lindor do it last year with the Mets. Shit, we've seen Vientos do that last year. And now we got Juan Soto, who has basically great clutch numbers in the postseason with the Nationals. He played extremely well in the playoffs with the Padres, even in a down season. And we saw what he did last year with the Yankees. The guy is clutch. You add that Lindor to that, you add Pete Alonso to that, and a little bit of Nimmo, we got something cooking here. There's no reason why this offense can't dominate games in the playoffs, even with good pitching we're facing. So I think it can happen, guys. There's no reason why to think that. If you're gonna think, and this is from Mr. Negative here, there is no reason why the New York Mets can't win a championship this year. There is no juggernaut team. There is no team that you should be afraid of. There's team again. Everybody was talking about the Padres for 2 weeks. They went into LA and got embarrassed by the Dodgers, and they were red hot with a cold Dodger team. The Padres were walking into LA and Dodger Stadium red hot, and they got embarrassed by the Dodgers in 3 games. There is no team dominant. That includes the National League and the American League. Every team is beatable. Every team has flaws. Name a team, I can give you flaws. And that's including the Mets, by the way. So any team makes the playoffs can win. So Mr. Negative, which a lot of people call me, it's not about being negative. It's about stating the facts. That might sound negative, but if you don't like to hear the facts and hear the problems with our team and other teams, because I'm going to tell you this right now, there's a lot of content creators for other teams that will not tell you their flaws. I'm not afraid to do it. I know Chris is not afraid to do it. Zach is not afraid to do it. Anthony Subway to Shea is not afraid to do it. And I damn sure know Hector's not afraid to tell you. I can't say for others, but I know those guys because I spoke to them a lot. I had shows with them. I hear it. They're not afraid to criticize. Even when things are going well, we talk about our flaws. There's not other teams, content creators that talk about their flaws. They only talk about what's going well. And maybe that's a detriment. I don't know. I don't care about other teams. I do know the Mets have as good of a chance to win a World Series as anybody else making the playoffs. But the first thing they got to do is make the goddamn playoffs because that's priority number 1. I don't give a shit what Stern says about sustained success, right? That payroll should make you make the playoffs. That shouldn't be hard to do with a payroll of $320 million. Sorry. So when it comes to this Mets National Series, you see the pitching matchups. We know the pitching for the Nationals is good. They got Gore, who got beat up in his last start. Irvin, pretty good. Lord, pretty good, right? But you got Peterson, Senga, Minaya. There is nobody else you want on this mound. I know you want to see Brandon Strode and you want to see Nolan McLean again. But these are your guys. If these guys are not going to do the job, then I don't care what Nolan McLean does. I don't care what Brandon Strode comes up here and does. It's not going to be enough. You need these guys to perform. You got your best pitchers on the mound in this series. You got Peterson coming off a bad outing. You got Minaya giving up 4 or 5 runs in his last outing. Senga actually looked like a pitcher last outing. Nice to see. Can Senga do it again? Can he repeat a successful quality start after a good one? Can Minaya finally get over the hump and look like a good pitcher and the $20 million we're giving him? Can he get through 5 innings, maybe even 6, and get to that 90-plus pitch count? That would be nice. That's a goal for Sean Minaya in this series. Peterson, he's been good all year. He had a hiccup his last start. Do I think he hit a wall? It's a possibility. Having over 140 innings and going to 170 innings this year from what he did last year, back-to-back years, I don't know if he's hitting a wall. He's never done it before. We'll see tomorrow. If he can give us 6 innings and a very good start, maybe he's good. Maybe he didn't hit a wall. We'll have to wait and see. So a lot of things to look at in this National Series. Should we win 2 out of 3? It better be mandatory. It better be at least that. Anything less, we're going to be having real problems here. Because Peterson, Senga, Minaya are your top guys. Let's not talk about Nolan McLean being a top guy yet. He's had 1 good start, and we all like it. We all like him. We see his demeanor. But that doesn't mean it's going to continue. This team is going to go based on Peterson, Senga, and Minaya. We got to see what they can do. We had over 600 in the stream on YouTube and X, guys. It's been a good time, but not a long time. So good news is that the Mets are on a 2-game winning streak. They finally won a series. The pitching looked competent. The offense has been doing their job over the last 7 to 10 days. Let's continue that. Let's go into Washington and kick their ass. They're not a good team. They got good pitching, but that shouldn't stop the Mets. They should win. With Senga, Peterson, and Minaya in this series, you should win 2 out of 3 at the very least. Should doesn't mean it will happen. But there's a lot of good signs from the New York Mets over the last 4 days with their offense and their pitching. Let's see if it can continue and get some more wins, right? I want to be talking tomorrow in pre and post in regards of the Mets playing well, especially in postgame. I want to talk about a win. I want to talk about 3 in a row. I want to talk about the Phillies getting their ass kicked against the Mariners and we gain a game on them. That's what I want to be talking about. So once again, guys, I want to thank you for watching Mets Talk Live right here on the channel and on X. Over 637 crazy Met fans watching this stream right now on YouTube and on X. If you are watching this on X and you're not a subscriber on the channel, I appreciate it if you go to the channel, hit that link, and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you tomorrow, guys, for a Mets pregame. And, of course, the Phillies are up 5-0. Why not? So the Mets broke the Mariners, unfortunately. So, again, we got to stay paced. That's the least we can do as the New York Mets. So we're a game and a half up on the third wild card. We're 5 games back, possibly 5.5 by the end of the day. But if the Mets play well, I think we're going to be fine, guys. So thank you for tuning in to Mets Talk Live on the channel and on X. I'll see you tomorrow for Mets pregame with myself. Most likely I'll have a guest. I'll see if Zach can join me because I know Chris will be going to the games in Washington. With that said, guys, you have a rest of your good night on a Monday. Enjoy the rest of the off day. We got a little bit to smile about. Wait for the news about Francisco Alvarez. Hopefully get it tonight and not wait for tomorrow, but it doesn't sound like good news if nothing has any news has been said yet. So we'll wait with anticipation about Francisco Alvarez and the possible injury to his thumb and MRI results. Have a good night, guys. Let's go Mets, and I'll see you tomorrow on the pregame show, guys. Have a good night.
Bob on the mic, spitting truth from the heights. Queens unite under stadium lights. Bright nights, 7 train rides. Dreams born in the real hum. Brooklyn to Queens, yeah, we all about that outcome. This our time, this our cheer. Mets Talk Live, bring the hype, make it clear. From the boroughs to the field, this our year. Queens in the house, let the world hear. From Flushing Meadows, echoes bounce off the bat. Rob calls, hit the mic, snaps like a thunderclap. Home runs over bridges, no gaps in the story.